right, fantastic. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's great to have you all back here. I have been listening a lot to Megan Thee Stallion's Hiss lately, and I feel like there's a lot of lyrics that resonate with me deeply in my soul, and people should take that to heart. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, k-libra. How are you doing, k-libra?
Been doing better. For me, it's Beautiful Pain by Eminem featuring Sia. Oh. If you listen to that song, ow. I know that Eminem has this whole reputation and shit, but he does have some really heartfelt music that he makes, and he even expressed in his music that he would prefer to make like the kind of uplifting, motivational music that he wants to keep making than like certain other kinds. And I really like that about him. It's one of the reasons that over the years I just keep wanting to listen to him over and over again.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that we really appreciate about all forms of audio is being able to listen to them constantly. So if you want to continue to listen to us, you can always stop by our Patreon and support us. Mm-hmm. You know, we have a lot of wonderful patrons on the Patreon, and you got to hear a few of them on our game show, which I think was a lot of fun. And, you know, that sort of interaction and conversation really keeps us going. So we always appreciate the support, and it helps us keep things on the road, especially when we are happy to confirm that we're officially going to be at Vernal Equinox this year live on a panel. So if you want to continue supporting us doing things like that, you know, our Patreon is where to go.
Yep. And so we hope to see you there at F3 2025. And then you can look at me in the face and be like, what did you just say?
Look at both of us, honestly. And say that. So, you know. But yeah, no, it's been a really hectic week, so I'm really excited to be sitting down and talking about good TF shit. And we're joined by two guests today, actually, who are here to talk about their good TF shit. So, Eclipse and Ifeelodd, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Ribbit, hi, I'm a frog. I'm Ifeelodd, or Crowley, you can call me that because that's my name, and it's less wordy. And Eclipse, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm Eclipse, she, they, sometimes known as Darling Demon Eclipse, and I love all girls in this world.
Amazing. We love this for the Sapphics, so truly iconic. We're really excited to have you both here, and in particular, I know that both of you work within the realm of TTRPGs and, you know, creating interesting art on the margins, as it were. And so I know one of the projects that you both have been working on is the We Live Forever and We Love to Live game. So maybe just to kind of take a step back, we can start on what actually got you both into making TTRPGs, first of all, and then maybe how that led to the current one that you both have been working on together.
Do you want to go first, Crowley?
Yeah, I'll go first. Honestly, my whole start with TTRPGs, I think largely is because I was super interested in indie video games. Kind of originally what I wanted to do with my life. It's what I went to fucking school for. Remains to be seen how good of an idea that was. But yeah. So as I sort of got into making stuff online and development, I ended up, you know, sort of stumbling onto tabletop role-playing games as sort of an interesting outlet, and coincided really well with COVID and my own sort of branching out into queer circles and realizing that I was not a human person and instead sort of a bizarre assemblage of traits. So it just ended up working really well, and I just sort of joined a TTRPG server and just met Eclipse there during a game jam, and things just kind of snowballed from there.
Nice.
Alrighty. Yeah, I really appreciate it whenever I get to make a friend in a creative circle like that. But it also speaks to the health of the group that you joined, that you were able to make a lasting connection there, because there are some places where shit just goes to die.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Reliquary Station, which is a really interesting and great queer TTRPG and art space. I started doing TTRPG stuff quite a bit before that. I feel like there are kind of two things that happened in parallel that eventually kind of crossed over for me. The first being I was playing a lot of indie RPGs after I got kind of out of D&D. I was playing Interstitial and a lot of the classics of like the modern indie scene, like, you know, your Quiet Years, your Blades in the Dark stuff, and then simultaneously I was doing a lot of like private ERP, erotic roleplay, and those things eventually crossed over because I was like, wait a second, like I'm doing all these things separately, and that's kind of how I wound up making a lot of stuff that was very explicit. And then I think like me and Crowley, like part of our conversation when we made We Live Forever was that, like, wanting to make stuff that was going to be really, you know, I mean, it was for the trans fucking jam, which I think added to it.
Yeah.
But, you know, make stuff that was really explicit as well.
So you wanted to just go real hard and not just like skirt the line or anything like that. You wanted to make sure that you saw more of the stuff that was just really, really just fucking hardcore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, like, any sort of... A lot of that is just, like, trying to make something that is very sincerely what it is a piece of media, and like not only unabashedly about the freak shit, but is also like not afraid to also like take itself seriously, like avoiding the like MCU quipping about how stupid the premise of the thing is, just like really going in on this is a weird, horny world, but it's also one that can be sincere and horrifying. And honestly, personally, I think a lot of inspiration for how the shape the Game Jam version of We Live Forever took came from Eclipse's previous work on stuff like Sapphic World, which is a phenomenal upcoming queer fantasy project that is also very much for the freaks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I see you're getting the representation out there. I see that you're trying to be sincere with your weirdness, which I do appreciate. I do want to be able to look at something and not feel cynical about it, because I do feel like in any circle of like fandoms or consumers, or whatever the fuck, people that just down the content slop or some shit like that, there's a lot of cynicism, and it's just kind of like poisoned a lot of people's attitudes. But I do like it when somebody just commits to something, because then I at least know how to feel about it, you know, other than feeling like oh man, this is just hollow. Can you at least just be honest?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, earnesty is really important. I mean, it's one of the, like, we talk about earnesty and sincerity a lot with Are Beheld, which is our creative collective with a bunch of other cool folks. I mean, not really that many. I can literally list them off. Six Valentine, Wendy Ripston, Lilith Lilac Leviathan, and Ira Prince. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I can't do much more than agree with that philosophy, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I know that, like, to build on what you're saying, Libra, too, like, I find a lot of the, like, almost, like, sincerity poison stuff that comes out, like the content slop, as it were.
It's irony poisoning.
It's irony poisoning, sorry.
Yeah,
Sincerity
irony
poisoning is the problem we have, where everything...
yeah, that's the thing you're going for.
Yeah,
I have yet
kind of
no.
Kingdom Hearts level crying.
No, you see,
Yeah.
when you do that, you cross over into being pretentious. There's no. I think there's irony poisoning, and then there's pretension.
Yeah.
So
but sincerity poison is between the two.
I would
say.
definitely rather be pretentious than like cynical.
I also would prefer that. At least it's honest.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing I was going to say was, I think a lot of this kind of ties back to, you know, like with the irony poisoning, it ties back to a lot of like the demands of like, what is art supposed to look like under capitalism? And I know that that's a kind of a theme that has played into some of your past work, in terms of like pushing back against that. And so I was curious to hear a bit more about like how that's like come into play as a theme for the both of you in some of the work that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go first.
Yeah, I liked the question, and I was really excited to hear Crowley's answer, which is why I said,
That's fucked up and evil that you would do that to me. You're a villain. But yeah, I think it's really important to, like, express the full gamut of, like, weird alienation and the desire to create, and under not only capitalism but also just existing as, like, personally, as I have as, like, a disabled person who can't do most, like, normal physical jobs to an extent that people would be satisfied with, which means that it's all, like, it's either, like, being a disability hire and having everyone talk to you like you're subhuman, or, like, putting all of the eggs into all of these, like, independent ventures, and just, like, it's like that meme of the guy at the slot machine that says 99% of gamblers quit before they win big.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of that fear and that dread and that, like, simultaneous desire for validation and, like, the means to self-actualize, but also, like, the understanding that, like, it's kind of this or die, makes it into a lot of work. Like, this, like, little interactive fiction thing I've been releasing very slowly called Roadkill City is very much about that. We Live Forever's whole system revolves around, like, pact makers who you, like, make magical agreements with to, like, be transformed and gain abilities. And a lot of that is the concept of, like, actualizing yourself in unideal circumstances and means that are probably bad for you.
So it's kind of like perseverance through vice or something like that?
Yeah, it's there's a lack of good options. Like, ultimately, it's one of those things where it's like, you're going to have to either find a path that works for you and mitigate the harm involved, or not be. And ultimately, that's kind of a shitty trade-off, but it's one that everyone has to make. So, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you're giving me vibes of Lisa.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knows. Like,
oh, I'm a huge Lisa head. I have rambled to Eclipse at length.
I haven't even seen enough of that game, and I haven't gotten to play it yet, and I fucking knew there was something in there. It makes so much sense that you would go for a game where your choices are coping, and you have and like that's really all you can do to make it to the end, and then hope that something good happens, but nothing good will probably happen anyway. Yeah,
you can make good in the world, but it's hard. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done, and you're going that BoJack Horseman bit with the sloth who's like, it gets easier, but you have to do it every day. And
yes,
is very much how I feel. Anyways,
that one resonates.
Yeah. Monologue aside, Eclipse, I apologize for the length.
No. Please. I love hearing you talk about your feelings about things. For me, this is about, like, capitalism, right?
This is about whatever you think is relevant.
Yeah, but, and it's also, you can pick on any of those threads too. So
they're good threads. I think, like, the way that Crowley, like, thinks about, like, these kind of, like, indestructible structures is, like, working through them and finding joy within them. I have a much more, like, not much more. I have, like, a very cataclysmic, like, view of like, capitalism, where it's like, if I'm writing a story where it exists, it is, like, suffocating and unlivable. I think a good example of that is We Live Forever's Forth and Moaning, where it's not necessarily explicitly said, but it's the undercurrent of the entire thing, which is that all of the pact makers and characters and creatures in Forth and Moaning, this like jazzy city block, are poor and trying to make money off of their art, and it has made them insufferable. They all hate each other. They are always judging each other. They are trying to transform each other into instruments, or suck each other into their swirling vortex of bodies that goes down into the earth. And that's the vibe. But when I write something like Sapphic World, which is a post-capitalist setting, things are a lot better, but also I like exploring the problems that wouldn't be solved by not having money issues anymore. Right. Like people not apologizing for things they've done, people not trying to forgive or absolve people for things they've done, people being up their own asses about things, people being up their own asses about their politics. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting space to explore, both within and outside of capitalistic, structures of life and economy. And so I try and do both of those in my art.
That's fascinating to me. And honestly, like, just to touch on the bit from We Live Forever in particular, I find that such an apt metaphor for so many different spaces in terms of trying to exist in capitalism and people kind of feeling like they're being kind of set up to like compete with one another. I mean, social media is a great example of that. I mean, the numbers game and all that shit, it's very much set us up on course to not build community, but to actually bring it down. So I think it's really interesting that you've kind of translated that in such an apt way into the game. Would you say that, I guess, focusing on that one in particular, have you found those kinds of experiences are more common in some of the communities you've transited through, or is that something that you've seen in other communities but have managed to find genuine community in the ones that you do inhabit?
That's a good question. I think it's a bit of both, because I think you run into very different people. I've met a lot of people who have been really accepting and embracing of people who are kind of on the fringes of their communities, or people who are coming up. And I've also seen people who see someone, someone being curious and excited about a thing and then stomping them down. And so, yeah, I think for me it's a question. There are certainly communities that are more like one or the other. Like I'll say, when I was trying to do like really hard like VTubing stuff, that was a community that I found was just very like very clout chaser-y. But I think RPGs at least have been really really good in that regard.
Occasionally Eclipse will just be like, oh yeah, Jeremy Scrumbles, the like cartoon possum, never talk to them. They've done things you can't fathom. Hundreds dead. And I'm just like, who are they? And then Eclipse is like, well, 2 years ago, they had, like, 10 followers, and they used that to start a paramilitary organization. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, I won't talk to them, thank you.
God, that sounds like a challenge for me.
Yeah, where's your paramilitary organization, Libra? Come on.
No, not to make one, to destroy that one.
Oh, I mean, yes. I mean, correct.
I mean, I made that specific person isn't real. It was all like...
I figured, but it's
Even
such
better.
a funny example and also depressingly believable. That's the other part. Like, I'm like, yeah, I could actually believe that had happened.
That person isn't real. I'm not casting aspersions. If that person exists, I don't know them.
Yeah, no, I figured as much. The thing I was gonna say was, I figured it wasn't real, but also the fact that there was also like a sliver of believability to it too. Like, I could imagine someone did actually do that. I think says a lot about the state of the internet.
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh.
It doesn't help that I'm kind of a hater-ass bitch. I have like personal rules that I keep about not talking about things in public.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just not healthy. Yeah. But when I'm with my friends, sometimes I'll talk shit because, who doesn't? You share the important things with the people you care about so that they're also warned. Honestly, I think that's how community should work. And like, honestly, I've said this before on the podcast, but like my first rule with like Twitter or Blue Sky or just anything about like where you post stuff in general, my first rule is don't post. Like, I do not talk about opinions or shit online because it almost never leads to good things, and it's better to just
talk to the people that you care about and warn them about other things, or share those like opinions in spaces in which you can actually be properly heard and talk about things in a nuanced way. And social media isn't for that. So
Yeah.
but games are for talking about nuanced things, which I appreciate. I think I also wanted to kind of get an understanding as to the overall thrust with We Live Forever, because I know we kind of dived into talking about some of the themes and stuff, but I realized we didn't really touch on the premise exactly. And obviously I know there's some on the itch.io page, but maybe we could just dive a little bit deeper into the concept for it and how that idea came to y'all.
Do we want to read the tweet that inspired We Live Forever and We Love to Live's name? Because I feel like it's a useful...
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, go for it.
This is a tweet by @BestinCO. Subway Rat made eye contact with me and said, "Join us. When the train comes, we slide under the tracks and feel it rumble over us like a warm thunderstorm. We live forever and we love to live. I said no thank you. I am too large. He turned away from me. I cried."
Oh my god.
Yeah. So
Sorry, go ahead.
very good tweet.
Yeah.
So the main idea with We Live Forever is the concept of, like, for a certain kind of person / non-person entity, this place, this otherworld dream space, city of, like, rats and bugs and vermin that's, like, run by these, like, powerful pact makers who will trade favors for, like, gradually siphoning away at your humanity. And the idea that, like, it's a space specifically designed for people with certain neuroses as kind of both a playground and kind of a devious trap.
Right.
And what happens to people who have access to this space if they become part of it, if they have, like, balance their like normal human lives they have to return to with this, like, burgeoning supernatural transformation. If they die horribly in a place that's way lower than you're supposed to go in the many layers of the city, just like that. There's definitely some inspiration about, like, specifically the concept of mementos from Persona.
Oh yeah.
On my end, at least. Is there anything I missed, Eclipse?
There's some... I mean, I think part of it is just, like, it has a complicated relationship with transformation. Like, not necessarily a... Like, it thinks transformation is really hot and cool.
Yeah.
But also it is... I think it's interested in, like, the... Not necessarily dangers, but, like, the sort of, like, ways that vulnerable people can dive deep into, like, hedonism and how that can change them. Would that be accurate, Crowley?
Oh, yeah, no, I would totally agree. It's a lot about, like, the concept of what are you okay with? What are you willing to do to feel like yourself? And also, like, the concept of, like, performance and, like, the extent to which identity is something you put on. There's a lot of, like, motif of performance. The, like, first area, the Slugskin Market, is this, like, labyrinth-ass, like, market town in a sewer that has, like, a bunch of different, like, there's, like, a carnival fortune teller and, like, a cartoon clown mouse and, like, a fake Godfather mafia guy are, like, the pact makers. There's Fourth and Moaning, which is, like, specifically music and jazz. There's the Estate, which is, like, a fae court. And there's the other silly one, which is the Suburbs.
The end.
Okay.
Yeah, the end. That one's fun because that one's just kind of a terrible reflection of the real world. Don't go down there. It's too
nothing there.
DrCoomer.png, yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I end up in one of those places and I'm being driven, I always ask the question, how do people live here? Then I'll get some kind of practical answer, well, like, everybody drives, and no, that's never the answer I'm looking for, is what do you do? There's no life in those places. Really, just fucking, how do you live there?
It's desolate.
I'm in danger.
Smiles.
You're surviving is what you're doing.
There's some good photographs. There's some good photo manips in the end in We Live Forever using images that I've taken of the place where I live. So,
Oh, all right.
The complete edition has like photos from specifically my childhood home after we moved out and had to like go to the place at night. So it's like empty and devoid of furniture. Me and Eclipse have put a lot of personal stink into this game, and especially the like horror areas kind of get to like it's a very kind of visceral and vulnerable place, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can get a big wet tail and bug eyes and like big ears or whatever.
Oh, you can get an udder, you can get a skunk ass, you can get so much wrong with you.
Skunk ass just makes me think of somebody who doesn't wash like it's nothing special.
I mean that too.
I know what you mean.
That too. You're gonna smell, but like also, you know.
I mean, look, you're gonna have to be telling me that skunks are always like smelly, filthy motherfuckers. But the truth is, they just piss at you when they have to. But they may have to clean themselves, you know.
They do.
Oh no, these skunks smell bad because it's a sex thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine for them.
Well then, you know what? Fair. If that's what they desire in their deepest of hearts, then you know who am I to judge, right?
If someone smells bad in Vermidday, given the amount of magic most people have access to, it's probably because they're freaks.
Someone smells in Vermidday, bow to them. Sorry, I should.
I wanted to pick on this. I wasn't going to bring it up until later, but you mentioned it, so now you've activated my trap card. So I was curious to hear a little bit about how photo manipulation plays into the game, because I saw that it was something that you've done in the past, Eclipse, and you know, it's my baby. I love the medium. It's where I live. My country home and is there, and I was just curious to know more about how that played into not just like how it was integrated into the game, but like how did it add to the storytelling in your perspective to have like that photo manipulation aspect?
Yeah. I think something that's interesting about the photo manipulation in We Live Forever is that it's not. I mean, you can see in the show notes. The one that's in there, I think, is from Crowley. It's the Get Real, which is really good. It's not in a traditional like what you think of as like a fur affinity photo manip style. It's not taking stock photos or celebrity photos and like adding transformation effects. It's like more weird and sketched on and like almost Cartoon Network-esque in a lot of places. I was the Cartoon Network IRL bits that they did in like the mid 2000s are definitely a big inspiration for what I've done with my stuff. But I think the blending of the real and the unreal has been like apropos to this show's topic, like really crucial to creating a sense of TF-ness of transformation as sort of a present thing in the game.
Yeah.
I
am a huge fan of like all of the like fucked up photo manips in the game. It's a lot of fun, like just to have like characters and like juxtaposed in a real-ish space. A lot of the both the original and the like new versions of some of the area art from the complete edition were all like made with like drawn-in characters on like kitboshed combined stock backgrounds, as well as like specifically in the complete edition, the day phase, Eclipse has done a lot of really good like use of like very bog standard public domain assets to give the vibe of it being like quote unquote the real world, which part of the reason for that is because the like blurring of the line between like the like real and like dream world is very important to the whole like TFE vibe. That's why the scary area, the end, also uses photographs, but in a much more like 2008 Slenderman video way.
Right.
It's like going back to the using real stuff, but instead of to establish a sense of like drollness and familiarity, it's to establish that something is terribly wrong.
Yeah, that feeling of unsettledness is something that I think can be so interesting to integrate. And so kind of using it in the way that you're describing, I think, is it's a visceral way to grab attention and like focus someone in almost on the thing that you're trying to highlight is unsettling. And I think that's pretty cool.
Trevor Henderson's work, I feel like, is a big, at least for me personally, I can't speak as much for Eclipse.
I agree.
Trevor Henderson's work and other similar sort of like taking photos and like painting a singular monster or supernatural thing into it in such a way that it looks like recovered trail cam footage. A lot of that, as well as like another very important thing to We Live Forever's identity is puppetry and like the works of Jim Henson. Like that was that's my baby. That's my hyperfixation that in the work, and the like juxtaposition of the physicality of like weird little guys in a space with humans and vice versa. It's Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's Labyrinth. It's all that dork shit that I love.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Labyrinth was considered dork shit. I mean, it's not for me, but like I thought people love Labyrinth.
Oh no, I'm being
self-depreciating.
Yeah, for the purposes of a joke.
The thing that I have learned is that the kernel of truth is really the kernel that they pay a little more attention to on the inside, so I attack it a little bit. Don't do it, people. Don't do it. Aggrandize yourself more, jokingly aggrandize yourself more than you would joke on yourself. That's what I think you should do.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I just, I think in particular, when it comes to a lot of the stuff just around what you've been talking about with the kind of juxtaposition of the almost horrific, in a sense, through the photo manips, I find that really interesting. And obviously, there's a lot of discussion around, like, as you mentioned before, like the kind of toxicity inherent to accepting, I guess like tasks or what have you from these pact makers who, they'll feed off your humanity and maybe you'll get what you want, but maybe in a way that is A, not how you wanted it to be, or B, maybe you like it a bit too much almost.
Yeah.
And I guess I was curious to touch on that element of like the toxic power dynamics in particular with some of the forced transformation and body horror that's inherent to that, and just understand how you decided to like approach that from a theme and how it plays into the overall messaging of the game.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of it is about like, I think this is true about a lot of the kink work that I do, but I think especially We Live Forever, because it's in the darker area of things that I make.
Yeah.
It's like it is about kink, but it is also like kind of kink in its own regard, where it's saying something about like, I mean, at its strongest, it could be seen as like a like metaphor for like human trafficking, and things of that nature. But it's also, because it's a kink game, because it's a game both about kink and has a suspension of disbelief in itself. We embrace the parts of that are hot, in the same way that a collar and a leash are embracing the things that are hot about like enslavement, like really 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 dark subjects, and things that have like historical it's a pretty dark history, but we kind of accept that these things are safe to explore in art and in the bedroom, and to fetishize. And right. So I think finding that balance and finding the line there of like, this is simultaneously a thing that is like critical of these dynamics and also finds them hot, has been interesting.
Yes.
I would agree. I think it's really fun because to a certain extent, like, We Live Forever is written with the knowledge that you are, everyone involved are adults playing a kink game and that they want to be transformed into creatures, right? But your characters are fake people with fake lives who might not. And the concept of, like, taking it both as a thing that can be erotic and desirable and acknowledging the elements where it can be, like, scary and fucked up and alludes to fucked up, like, unsavory real-life things is very much part of it. Like, the concept of there being a degree of real, like, in-character fear and, like...
Sounds to me like there are consequences. Like, yeah, you can have fun and, this is all for plays and funs and stuff like that, but you still want to explore the consequences of a setting, choices, a system, anything like that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's, for me, a lot of it is just a matter of, like, the verisimilitude. Like, I feel like if you don't at least slightly acknowledge the, like, darker aspects of a world based around a concept like this, it kind of it both cheapens the kink and kind of, like, detracts a little from it as a fictional setting.
Yeah.
And that, like, your mileage may vary with that. Like, nothing needs to be a certain way to be an enjoyable piece of erotic fiction, right? Like, these aren't universal standards. But when making something like We Live Forever, where we're, like, trying to construct this, like, furry Blades in the Dark fantasy horny setting, there's a lot of value in simultaneously embracing the, like, ramifications of these things on the characters' lives, and also that it's hot to have a big ovipositor.
Yeah. No, but I want to just agree with that and say, I think that some of the hottest kinds of transformation media, in my opinion, are the ones that not only can revel in it, but also will turn that bit of a critical eye towards it. I think that, having a level of self-awareness around what some of the ramifications might be to some of our fantasies is a really interesting thing that I wish was integrated in more media. Because let's face it, look, we all love I think most of us generally will enjoy stuff that's very just, this is the thing, it is hot, the end. But if we're going to talk about something from a, just from a purely artistic perspective, I always find there's more to mine. And so when a piece of art, be it a video game, a story, an art piece, whatever, when it does actually address those elements and really gets into the nitty-gritty of the ramifications of this interest, I think it really creates a fulsome piece of art in a way that I think sometimes not examining it doesn't.
I'm just going to say that I can think of one story setting that I wish really paid the fuck attention to what it was doing and what kind of thing it was getting horny on. Because that one, although it came off as a kind of a critique of poorer societal values, like vaccine denial, for instance, that shit was not really addressed in a really good way. And then it just sort of, like, was allowed to keep going in a way that twisted. Like, usually there's a fun way to kind of twist somebody into a sympathetic role, even when they're doing something bad. But this wasn't one of them. And it felt really off-putting that it was just kind of handled with sort of like a blasé attitude, because as far as you knew, nothing was really going wrong. You had this setting that was, that had like the spreading situation, and then it was just kind of like, oh, the situation reaches this character, said MacGuffin ends up changing them, and it's something that other people could be made the change with as well. But suddenly, like, as time goes on, it's sort of like, oh, whatever. The world's not really changing. It's just this one motherfucker who's talking about his own goddamn experience. When the idea is that this stuff came from, like, the world itself, and it was involved with the character, and it was just kind of like made to be like, this is horny, right? This is horny, right? It was, yeah. That whole tirade, because again, it feels insincere, because you can tell that it feels like a kind of pointed critique, but then it doesn't do that. It doesn't follow through with it.
Your social commentary has to have a point to it, and if you're not able to convey that point, then you've lost the plot, kind of thing. And that's,
if you're not ready to defend it or actually fucking go through with it, then don't fucking do it.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really appreciate in terms of what y'all have presented about We Live Forever, because it's very clear there's a purpose, and it's very clear there's a point. And I think that is such an important mindset to have when you're going into creating art, because there's a lot of dynamics in the real world that can pull us from that kind of focus sometimes. So it sometimes takes extra particular effort to remind ourselves of what the goal is when we're creating something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a social worker for my day job, so I've encountered some stuff that is in that vein. I'm still very new in the environment that I'm in, so I haven't seen everything, but like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I see a lot of value in like, I am a person who's like an absolutist in terms of like, whatever gets you off. Like, I'm not too I'm not too picky with that regard, but I'm interested in. I think partially even from a pornographic angle, I'm interested in like full-hearted like explorations of tough subjects, because like I think about this is stuff that I've not read that much of because it's it's really intense, and I'm a bit of a softie, but Cali Cthulhu, Yuri postings, Warhound series, all the sort of like mech perv, Hound and Handler stuff. I think a lot of that is like a really interesting and well thought out like critique of fascism, from what I've seen of it. That is also like extremely hot, and I think that's good. And it is hot because it knows what it is, and it's exploring it.
Another example, I think, would be one of my all-time favorite pieces of media right now, which is Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto, which is very much about grooming on both a personal and societal level, and it takes those things and it acknowledges them and it takes them seriously, but Makima is also hot. Like, she is a lady with big boob who make you bark like a dog. And but also, like, they trust you to understand that, like, the horrific nature of the way human beings are treated in the setting, and Genji's efforts to find some degree of personal footing in that, and are like real human struggles that deserve acknowledgement. And I think a lot of it is really interesting because, like, with both the Hound and Handler stuff and Chainsaw Man and some of We Live Forever, it really runs the dance of, like, how long can you flip between hot and upsetting before it permanently lands on one or the other, which I just, as a writer, find very fun to play with. Like, when does it reach the point where it crystallizes? How much shit are you willing to take for a woman who's kind of nice to you?
That's kind of what the end is about. Like, the end is a death drive, right? Like, most games of We Live Forever, if they run long enough, you will go to the end and you'll be like, what the fuck are we doing? I want to go home. Like,
I mean, that's the universal experience being stuck in the suburbs. You just want to leave because
yeah.
Oh god. I did want to also make sure I touched on something that you actually kind of alluded to earlier, and that was the kind of game creation collective that you both are a part of. And I was just curious to hear a little bit more about how that came to be and how it has worked in kind of practice in terms of the creation process and collaboration as a whole.
Yeah. I think it actually comes from us doing correct me if I'm wrong, Crowley, but I'm almost certain that the specific connection of people and places and things came from the 7-part Pact AP that we did with J Dragon.
I wasn't part of that, though.
This is true, but I feel like, because that was me, I guess 6 wasn't also, yeah, that's true.
Oh, sorry.
That was a part of it, because it drew us and Ira together, right?
Yeah, I definitely think, like, I would point to, like, playtesting Euphoria 2180, because that is the like, playtest we ran for that. But, yeah, no, I guess it really was a confluence of things, because, like, Ira and Wendy weren't as much a part of that at the beginning.
Yeah, it was a confluence of different, like, freak games, and people, like, talking about art, people being interested in specific projects, and then I think
Right.
Wendy Ribston was the first person to say like, "Hey, we should do this," and then we were like, "All right." And so we've tried a couple of different projects that were original, that were Are Beheld exclusive, and then recently we moved towards focusing on Sapphic World, just because like it's almost done and it's pretty easy to produce.
Right.
We haven't actually sorry, we've released one game. We released a Working Title, which was a collaboration between Lilith and Wendy. We have a very loose structure, a thing that we're still kind of figuring out in a lot of ways. But it's been interesting. I think we have I think the main thing that helps is just we talk with each other a lot. We work things out. We have meetings, and we all have an interest in like making really weird stuff, and have done that in the past and continue to do that on our own and together.
Yeah, I dig it. No, I think it's really cool that you've kind of been able to come together with like-minded creators and kind of use that almost as a trial ground in some ways, and just community building as another. Because I think, generally speaking, and this is me maybe doing a little bit of projecting, but I think that, especially in kind of weird-ish kink spaces, it can sometimes be difficult to find that sense of community. And so when people actually try to build it for themselves, I always think that's like a really interesting and positive thing that people can do. And I'm just always curious in hearing how it works for other people, and how they kind of draw those disparate folks together to kind of be in one kind of like-minded space.
Yeah.
I wonder, it's because I have to think of my server, because it's a lively place, but I never really had like a idea for it, other than people who will go there will often go there because they already like the art that I make. And it turned out to be a lot of things. I don't really look for spaces of like-minded people, like maybe like enough overlapping matching values or whatever, but generally I do want different sort of things. It was why when I was listening that I already thought that both of you getting involved in different art circles and stuff like that and groups is great, because when I started posting online, I thought, oh, we can talk about creative things and ideas and bounce things back and forth and inspire each other. That's not as easy to get as I originally thought. But when it comes to making that kind of space, I guess I felt like I didn't really want to make it very narrow. And that's just something that I was thinking about listening to all of you, because I do like knowing different kinds of people. And even on this show, and several times, even just talking to people when I'm in calls and server or whatever, I tell people, you got to be able to make friends outside of this stuff. Even if you think it's weird, or if you feel like you can't, like you should.
Yeah.
It's just a good idea. And it's even better for art, I think, because they will give you perspectives that you wouldn't have thought of.
I totally agree. I would say all of our members at Are Beheld kind of come from very different tabletop like type spaces. Like Six is big in on like Lancer and like very like kind of granular mech stuff. Wendy is primarily coming at it as like a layout artist. Like, a lot of assembling as a collective was meeting people who have like interesting ideas. Like, I guess what I'm saying is like the thing we share is a desire to make art, and then like the rest of it varies. Like, we have a general shared value of making freak shit that's deeply sincere and communicative, and the rest between us really kind of varies. I definitely think, like, just in terms of like a friend group, like knowing all of these wonderful developers with very specific mechanical interests has really broadened my horizons for what games can be, like both tabletop and video, and it's really enriching. So I would totally agree that like you should absolutely look for people in like different or adjacent circles that you wouldn't necessarily intuitively think of hanging out with.
Yep, exactly that. And thank you for supporting that and why.
Yeah, no, I can't underline that enough. I second everything you said there, Crowley. And I think like I think Libra's said it before too, and I just find that sometimes it can be difficult in part to break out of our kind of self-contained spaces because we fear the unknown. And so I think that broaching that outside of the usual spaces is just such an important thing that people can do. So I also appreciate you saying all of that.
Yeah, I've learned so much about like so many people who make art that is completely different from mine, and it's always really exciting to do so.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Obviously, you know, I know that a lot of stuff that is contained within the game in particular is related to, you know, some weird body stuff and coming from like both a kink-based and darker kind of context. And I know that some of that process came originally from Sapphic World, which I know is still ongoing. And I was just curious to know a little bit more about how that process kind of informed how you then approached We Live Forever.
Yeah. Sapphic World is really wacky because it started from me wanting to... it started from me getting really horny and being like, what if there was a TTRPG that used Glitter Heart's rough structure for Powered by the Apocalypse, which for context is like a 3 playbook as one style approach where it's like, oh, you have all these modular playbooks and you're putting them together. So I was like, what if you had a twink playbook? What if you had a MILF playbook? Like, I was just on some shit.
I love it.
Yeah, and then I listened to a lot of Kishi Bashi and got deep in my feelings and was like, I'm gonna start writing some mythology. And then I woke up years later and I had like 800 pages of a bunch of a like kind of horny TTRPG, and then I met a bunch of people who were like, you need to make this weirder. And so I think initially going into We Live Forever, I was still kind of coming at it from at least personally coming at it from a like somewhat restrained perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think Crowley was very helpful in building out of that, and has also been very helpful in building out of that again as we do the complete edition.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I do see that this is one of the things that can make for really cool ideas when it's just been stuff simmering for a really long time. Then you finally get to put it together, because then you get to kind of discover your own work too. So it's very exciting.
Oh, yeah.
I think a good, this is something I've jokingly mentioned to Eclipse, which is that I think the best, descriptor for how Sapphic World has developed would be that, originally it very much had kind of an Adventure Time vibe, and now it has kind of a late season Adventure Time vibe, which is to say, everything's still silly and it's all there, but there's also just this undercurrent of interpersonal strife and existentialism that comes from developing as an artist over a number of years.
Yeah. And I also just, I don't care anymore. I'll just slip in a line oh yeah, I wrote a line today where it's the narrator is talking about how you can't bring her to parties because she's gonna use your girlfriend's throat like a fleshlight, and that's just kind of how it is.
That is such a line, and I know multiple people for which that line would work on, and you know what? Yeah. Godspeed. I support it.
Good for them.
Support the shit out of it.
Eclipse desires for women.
I think they're pretty cool.
Terrible, terrible things, and it's good. It's
very good.
Something that's kind of funny about We Live Forever is you can tell, if you know me and Crowley well enough, besides just the art, you can tell which pact makers were written by either of us. Because Crowley's are all these nasty Crowley's pact makers are named Grimefuck the Mournful, and they it's a fat panda man who smells like centipedes and will vomit in your mouth. And mine are always Parsilla, the queen of meat, and she will gently lead you towards her butchery.
Yeah, no, Eclipse. The Eclipse pack makers are all called like the Mean Woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
You're making little guys.
Yeah.
Just little
Often,
little creepies.
yeah, oftentimes very big guys.
Yeah.
It's fun. I think there's
good.
been some bleed over between our shared neuroses. I've learned to appreciate Eclipse's particular taste for girl violence very muchly. And I'd like to think I have made Eclipse more creature. I got Eclipse on the TFTuesday podcast, so I feel like I've.
That's an accomplishment, of course. So
I'm really excited to keep working with Crowley because I feel like we're reaching a point in our collaboration where we have a really good understanding of what each other like, and I think there's a lot of potential for us to move away from making things to gratify ourselves and to instead make things as gifts and fan service to each other. And I think that's really fun.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That's really
that's
satisfying.
Yeah, I dig it. And I think there's a particular joy in being able to do that with someone that you know well and already inherently trust to create something that you will oingo your boingo, as it were. So awesome. Well, I know we had some audience questions that I wanted to make sure we left some time for as well. So the first question that I have here is from Leaf Wine. And the question is, if TF became a more commonplace means of body modification, like tattoos today, for example, how do you think it would impact our society, both in the large scale and the small personal ways?
Oh, I have so many things to say about that, so somebody else should go first.
I think, first of all, that would be sweet, and I want to live in that world. But also, second of all, realistically, it would immediately become a question of to what extent are human rights applicable to people with non-human traits. That would happen in a day. It would start as like a joke, not joke that someone on the Daily Wire says, and it would immediately become like, at what point are we allowed to shoot you?
Yeah.
And like, it would be state by state. You would have a lot of people radically turning themselves into like abstract art pieces of flesh for the purpose. It would just kind of be a Crimes of the Future situation, if I'm being honest. Like that. That's what that movie is about. Like,
it is
fucking Cronenberg. Great. Everyone should
watch Cronenberg. He is a born and raised Toronto native, and this is why I call Toronto the TF capital. Everyone should watch him. Everyone should love his stuff. But anyway, sorry, I digress.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it would be a socio-political nightmare, but a lot of transcendent art would come from it, and also people could be dragons, and I think that's a net positive for the world.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to hit you with a slightly less cynical version of this, which is that so like enough of us would just like mimify ourselves that you would need to have like actually good like fake office jobs just as kind of a matter of like logistics.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I'm not immune to propaganda. I would mimify myself and get like a job where I have to like, klutz around all day and like wear a button up that like doesn't fit or whatever. Like I think it's good. Yeah. I think I hope that we can live in a better world where I would feel secure in doing TIA, doing free form TIA.
Hell yeah. I will say first of all, I think both of you are coming at it with some really good points. One of the things I would also mention is, and I think this touches a little bit on the flesh monster side of things, but given that like there's not really any bounds on the question, I think there would also be like a really interesting element in some ways of people trying to like how do I word this? Like attempts to try and like reality TF reality in like competing senses. And I feel like that would be a really interesting kind of clusterfuck.
What the hell do you even mean by that?
Like, okay, like there's like the trope of like reality bending in a way to be like, well, you've always been kind of like this.
You mean like fuck with people's perception, apply glamours?
Yes. Yes.
Like, yeah, okay, go ahead.
And so like I think it would be interesting to like, what am I trying to say here? I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it would be interesting to see how that kind of approach would interact with one another. And like I feel like it could result in some really fucked up consequences. And I think that's juicy.
Everyone has always been a sheep, and then tomorrow everyone has always been bimbos, and it's fun.
Yes.
You don't...
Exactly.
Look,
Okay. I'm already seeing some new things to talk about here. Just with these answers alone.
Okay.
You see... What? Go ahead.
Eclipse,
Macro and micro.
Yeah.
The effects.
Oh god, architecture will just...
It's over.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's over. You can kiss all architecture forever. Goodbye.
turning into a car for my dragon girlfriend to fuck.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you know what?
Ka-chow.
Godspeed. I salute it. But sorry, go ahead, Libra. You were gonna answer.
Well, before I forget the point, I saw like I just saw it happening right there with fucking with people's perceptions, and then there's also going to be the ones who think everybody should be like this, and it's going to create like a kind of salad bowl kind of thing, but there'll be kind of possibly some kind of fighting, because there usually is with people. I don't think that's very cynical. It's just people end up finding reasons to be fucking petty about anything, because it's happened in every community. And if you want to get unfortunately realistic, it's like happening among minority communities that are under attack right fucking now. So I think it would intensify that in a whole new fucking way. Another thing is, yes, if everybody gets to be either gigantic or minuscule, but what if they're stuck that way after their augmentation, or what does it take? I don't know what it takes. How flexible is that? Is it inflexible? What will we do for people that have to live that way? I also think that a lot of people would be very irresponsible with their choices, so they may make regrettable ones. And I'm not just talking about what form they would pick. I'm talking about the things they would do with that shit, okay? If you can get a tattoo that you regret, imagine getting a fucking superpower that you would regret. And that's the other thing. Law enforcement would be able to use it. You'd have to deal with that shit, okay? Law enforcement, military, all that kind of shit. They will use it, because that's how the fuck it would be used. And if the general public can use it, what kind of dynamic would that make for society? It would be great in like terms of like, you know, fleshing out your identity. If you want to be the best version of you, whatever you think that is. Transness would be something that would be very easily fucking dealt with, you know? It's just like your identity, gender affirmation, that would be wonderful. But if you're going to include like anything from like turning into a dragon, from like turning into a fucking car, absolute fucking chaos. I think it would actually be ruinous, and that the world would have to reconstruct itself afterward in order to accommodate the fact that there's just camps of people who want to be certain things and nothing else, or largely something like that. I think it would be fucking chaos for the human race and our fucking planet, and I would actually fear for it.
I think I would turn into a frog and go ribbit.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
And I don't mind that. You don't know me, but I don't necessarily mind that. So
basically, we broke the question.
I think we
broke the question.
No, you didn't break the question at all, because all the previous sentiments were completely sincere.
No. What I mean to say is, with just a few moments, we've already deconstructed the question entirely. So
yeah, but you cannot answer for the rest of the things just because you said it. I would do this doesn't mean shit to the rest of what I said.
What are you?
Anyway, we have more shit to talk about, don't we?
Sorry, go ahead, Crowley.
That got strange. Yeah. Let's continue.
Strange? Why? What's so weird about that?
Well, we did go off the rails a little bit, but that's okay.
No, we didn't. I answered the question.
You did answer the question. Sorry, go ahead.
There are a lot of questions here, and I think that, I think we just need to have Sapphic World's Dr. Mindfuck to figure it out for us. She's a very smart woman. She's a communist. And if you think she's wrong, no, you don't.
You see?
She'll figure it out.
All hail Doom.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. The next question we have is from Ski Sharp. And the question is, what is the one animal species or thing in general that you have struggled to draw, write, or create transformation for?
Oh, that's a pretty interesting question.
Yeah.
Let's see. I want to go first. I think... Oh man, you know what? Because it's I don't like drawing werewolves. But anytime I have ever tried, I'm just like, nah, that's just not really happening the way I would like it to. So like, yeah, wolves, werewolves. I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. It's not like I don't try, but it's harder for me than I guess some people would imagine it should be.
Yeah.
Horses are hard to draw.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Fucking
So you said horses?
yeah, that like not like toony horses or like anthro horse people or whatever, because like
Yeah.
ungulates is ungulates and like a lot of it is just shape. I'm talking like a proper realistic horse. Those things are constructed like someone hit like the spore randomizer setting on an animal. Their bodies are. I find like deep sea creatures and like insects to have a like more comprehensible body plan than like whatever the fuck horses have going on with their ankles and their feet.
I remember hearing something like the anatomy of a horse is something that's really well put together and works great as long as everything is in working order. But if one thing breaks down, everything else starts to fall apart.
Tracks.
Yeah.
In furry world, you have to shoot your horse friend when they break their knee.
Oh God.
It won't get better. It won't get better. I'm sorry.
That's the advantage of being anthropomorphized, because then you get the little human edge, the tiny human edge that everybody would want, wouldn't they?
That's the part that saves
Aha.
me. Oh God. I think, at least for me, when it comes to like creating photo manipulations, one of the things I think that I've struggled with is in particular like the transition of a cartoony species or character to a more realistic perspective. And the things that I have posted in general, I think I've been able to like hit that like correct middle point. But there's been plenty of other attempts that I just have not posted because I find that just because of the nature of the medium, it can be quite difficult. So all this to say, I wouldn't say there's like a specific species or thing, but more the concept of any sort of character that is more cartoon-based or toonish. There have definitely been struggles there and misses that I just do not show the light of day to. So
Hey, you like the toony category, yeah, then.
yeah, basically.
Okay.
I'm seconding horses. I'll specify especially centaurs, because like a centaur is like you took a person and you made them kind of a car.
Yeah.
It's like in terms of like effort that it takes to draw them. Like
Yeah.
you're making yourself think
Yeah.
both about like the human anatomy and the horse anatomy and how those connect, and it's just like I want to go to bed. It's too much.
Yeah, this is just too much. Oh, I love it. Awesome. And then the last question that we have is from Bolus. And so Bolus posits, imagine that you've TF'd into something that gives you species euphoria or something equivalent to it. How, in that situation, how would you view your former human self? Would you view them as having died? Are you a completely different person? Are you just a continuation, their successor, etc.?
Does anybody else want to go first?
I'll go first. Dude, I died yesterday. The person I was before COVID is fully dead now.
Yeah.
If I turned into like a giant frog or a weird like fucked up little amphibious creature, like if I became Mysona and was just like a fucked up little shapeshifter, yeah, no, I would my identity would resume anew, and my human self wouldn't be dead. It'd just be a matter of like, I would do a lot of things that would very quickly distance myself from my notions of being a human person. I'd be out there eating people. Not really. Well, if I turned into maybe I'd eat people.
Damn.
I would slay you though with my sword.
Literally.
I put eggs in you. I'm sorry. I put eggs in you and I summoned a big sword and I win.
That's very cool.
Yes.
That's
Really cool
a
logic.
completely different set of things than I expected, but okay. You're like, I'm a giant frog, okay, and then I'll eat people, okay, and now I summon a giant sword. What the fuck is... Okay, fine, you're one of those RPers. Get the fuck out of here.
Mods, they're god modding. Mods.
Yeah, mods. I think we need to ban.
I counter with guts. I will counter with guts every time.
Good.
How about you, Clip?
This one's complicated for me because when I transitioned, things got weird, personality-wise, and so there are parts of me that are still. Oh gosh, how deep do I want to get into this on a podcast?
As deep as you want.
As deep as you feel.
I'll do it. I think I've talked about this publicly before. There is an alter that I have, Simon, and then I have Eclipse. And Simon is usually involved when I'm like doing editing stuff, but Simon is like, has components of the person I was before I transitioned. And so I don't know what would happen if I transitioned into some other form, if I would have another, psychic shift like that. But the brain is weird. The brain does weird things to cope with significant change, so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I will say that, at least from my perspective, to echo something Crowley said before, like, definitely past versions of myself are dead and not coming back. I think that in the context of like this sort of a transformation or what have you, I mean, the closest thing I would probably view it is to be like a successor of sorts. I think generally speaking, I still view myself as like a constant throughout all the like kinds of people I have been in my life. But I will admit to like referring to like my past self in like different ways and such. And so I don't think it would be any different from how I treat, growing up and growing older and, the person you used to be when you were younger kind of thing. I don't think I would view it that much differently than that sort of process.
Yeah, I think I'd be pretty similar. I am somebody who, even with a past that I find full of regrettable shit, I still consider that a part of me, and it's just part of accepting myself and having peace of mind, because everything I am is built on that. The choices I made, the person that I was acting like, and, even though we forget things, there's little parts of us that remember or deliberately put it away, but it's never really gone, everything... Yeah. There is a score that's kept by us mentally and physically. So even if I was changed physically radically, then I guess I really wouldn't regard that too differently than I guess another major life event. And of course I would get treated differently and all that other kind of shit. And maybe my world will open up in a bunch of ways and shrink in others, but that's going to be me, because all I wanted to do was be the best version of it, but it's got to be me.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of seeing it. Awesome. Well, that was all the audience questions I had. I don't know if either of you had any questions for us.
Yeah, all right. Easy question. You have to turn into a regular animal forever, and you can't talk. It's just like a full feral animal to you. Which animal and why? Human is not an option.
Understood. I'm not going to try to weasel out of it, don't worry.
Gonna be a weasel.
I've had to answer this. I could do that. No, I had to actually answer this recently for someone, so the answer's fresh in my mind. I would, in all likelihood, pick a snow leopard. I feel very connected to them as of late, despite me wearing a cheetah tail right now while we're recording. But I feel very connected with them, and there's a lot of mannerisms that I think are appealing to me. I'm a person who really likes the cold, so cold climate adaptation would be a very easy swap over. And they carry around their tails in their mouths. Like, what else is there not to love? So, yeah.
I was thinking, what if I wanted to be just like a silverback gorilla or something? And yeah, I may not be able to talk, but it'd be easy for me to just be like, What you gonna
do? It's true. I dig it.
Yeah, I think that would be cool, because it's just like, oh, you can't talk, you can't do this. Okay, well, fine. First of all, I don't know if they've ever tried, but I would definitely try. And second, you got hands that are still pretty functional. Oh, the opposable thumbs thing, but, they haven't tried doing some shit yet, but I'm gonna.
Oh, absolutely.
definitely just like make a little thing. It's like, oh, just like strap a pen to my big ass finger and just be like, don't go in there or something.
Wise. To answer my own question, I think, despite my interest in frogs, if I actually had to be a regular feral animal for the rest of my life, either be a crow or just like a sheep, specifically one of the breeds that are kept for their wool, because I would be taken care of. I would have a pretty decent lifespan, and it's not a bad life. All right, Eclipse, they're ready. You gotta get them. Fuck them up.
Oh god. Okay, so I'm really into Warframe, and a big part of Warframes is that the Warframes are humans who were painfully transformed into Warframes and then mass-produced as, like, sort of undead, infected soldiers. If you died today, what would your, like... And they took your body and, like, your whole vibe and your whole situation, and they were like, we're making a Warframe out of you. What would your whole deal be? Like, what would your power set be?
I'd have to know more about Warframe, and I don't know enough about it. I've seen a good number of frames. There's a lot of really fucking cool ones. But, like...
Can I answer this question from a Destiny perspective?
Please.
Because technically... Exos used to be humans in the Destiny universe. And I find Exos to be super cool. And I think that they have a lot of really interesting movesets in the game. I mean, obviously, like, your moveset is dependent on your class, not actually your, like, race. So, like, you could have the same moveset as, as, like, an Awoken or something. But regardless, putting that aside, I really like... Warlock in general, Void Warlock in particular is really fun within Destiny, and I play as an Exo in that game. Big surprise. So I would probably pick something that had like that sort of ability of like power over darkness and like the ability to control small little dark holes and explosions and what have you. Like, I think that shit fucks. So if I had to pick something in that vein, it would be something in that, like, relative area. I don't know if that 100% maps to Warframe necessarily, but something in that realm.
No, that's sick as fuck, though.
Thank you.
God damn it. Now I'm just thinking Berserk would be like a Berserk version of that kind of shit.
Hell yeah.
Where
a Berserk version of Guts.
Well, a Berserk version of Guts is the purest form of Guts, but, you know.
You know what I mean.
I'm tripling, quadrupling down on the Berserk bingo, but I like that prospect. Although more personally, I guess I'd try to find some kind of Gatling gun that I could utilize and take with me, because I fucking love those things. I would definitely make it my business to find one of those. So either I'm going to carry the Dragon Slayer or the gun equivalent of that. It's going to be loud and fucking violent.
Love to see it.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Any other brewing questions, or? I
think that's all I had in me.
Gotcha.
I think the world will be okay.
I'm barren.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate y'all coming on to chat with us as well. If people are looking for you both online, where can they find you?
Oh, mine is really easy. Eclipse.gay. You probably heard me typing it.
Easy. Very good.
Eclipse.gay.
God, that was such a good domain name.
Thank you.
It's perfect.
I am Ifeelodd, all lowercase. You can find me on Blue Sky and itch.io, which I am linking right now.
Perfect.
Had a Twitter, but I'm not going to use it anymore. That guy's a Nazi.
Yes, he is a Nazi.
But yeah, Ifeelodd, all lowercase. I don't have a website yet.
Ship TBD.
It's going to be like ifeelodd.ifeelgreat.
Ifeelodd.croak.
Please.
I love it. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much both for coming on. I had a great time chatting with y'all, and I hope that everyone listening had a great time listening to us get into the nitty-gritty of cool, weird, queer art. So I as always, I hope everyone has a wonderful week and that the weather is treating you all right wherever you may be, and that you stay hydrated, keep an open mind, and continue to stay TFE.
I like it in the dark. It's nice right now.
Hell yeah.
Bye for now.
Good night.